exactly has 2 years to save the world? The answer is every person on this planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions tumble. Generation of national climate plans, but we need these stronger plans now. We have 2 years to save the world. It begs the question, who exactly has 2 years to save the world? The answer is every person on this planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions tumble. Generation of national climate plans, but we need these stronger plans now. We have 2 years to save the world. It begs the question, who exactly has 2 years to save the world? The answer is every person on this planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions tumble. Generation of national climate plans, but we need these stronger plans now. We have 2 years to save the world. It begs the question, who exactly has 2 years to save the world? The answer is every person on this planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions tumble. Generation of national climate plans, but we need these stronger plans now. the world? The answer is every person on this planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions tumble. Generation of national climate plans, but we need these stronger plans now.
Hello, and welcome back to Reforesting for Peace, where we ignite the change through the power of storytelling and the magic of filmmaking. Um, as you know, today we embark on this new adventure where we're gonna be delving into the intricacies of the session composition, the scene building, and nature-based solutions for water conservation. The script writing and composition are the backbones of any film, of course, but shaping the narrative and giving life to our ideas, it's where imagination meets the structure and creativity meets the purpose. As we delve into these essentials, we will uncover the secrets behind crafting compelling narratives that amplify the message of nature based solutions. Welcome, everyone, to our fifth Reforesting for Peace session. We are really excited to learn today from you, get to know where we are using the Mentimeter once more. You will see the Mentimeter code here in our slides. So get to know our Mentimeter code 55213644 and go there, because please let me introduce you to Myrna, one of our GYC champs who are currently studying in Europe, and she will be the Mentimeter guru of this session. Hi, Myrna, how are you doing?
Hi, Augustine. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing super good. Happy that we have this session. I'm excited to have you here today.
Yes, I'm so excited. You guys have been working on First Thing for Peace for so long. It's so cool to be in the fifth session, moderating the Menti.
Nice, yes. And don't forget our partners, Mafilm, CBA, Eco Interpreters, who are helping us in the interpretation in four languages. If you are not hearing your right language, change the ones that we send you through emails. Trescon, Sankari Studios, Youth Climate Report, and Alta C, of course, Youth in Green, who is our fiscal sponsor. So today, let's introduce the hosts. I am Agustin Ocaña, the chairperson and co-founder of GYC, and today we have, I want to let everyone knows out. Congratulations, Hannah, because she finished the university and now is a professional.
Mhm. Thank you, Agustin. So good to see you, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so happy to be a volunteer as well here in Global Youth Coalition and supporting this Reforesting for Peace initiative. So let's see what we have to learn today. First of all, I wanted to remind you all about the languages. If you have requested language interpretation, be sure you are watching us from the right YouTube channel link. You can find them in your email. We will drop the links in the main chat in case you want to change to your mother tongue or preferred language. And don't forget to subscribe. Use your phone, because one thing we really want to work on is the engagement. So make a story, use your phone, and don't forget to subscribe. As well, I wanted to remind you all the rules of engagement. Don't forget that we want to make this place a respectful environment for all of us, filled with dignity, and pay so much attention to our speakers that are putting so much of their energy and time to provide these valuable sessions. Now, here is the social media. Use your phones, take a picture, and we would like to encourage this positive influence in social media so we can learn from one another. And we would love to see your stories and be forwarding them in online. Um,
Let me introduce the team. Of course, Hannah, one of our volunteers from Mexico. We have Bianca Manfred from Bolivia, who is helping us tirelessly into the social media, who is producing this session. Irene Delfanti, together with Creative Broadcast Agency with Christian McConnell, and of course, Lujane Ramosi, who is right now attending a very important meeting as a youth negotiators of her country, Egypt. Let's keep it going, and don't forget to what is this? This is the attendance form.
yeah, this is like a great way for all of us to um, make sure that we're here. So use your phones. You can scan that QR code and fill it out. And today we are super excited to have our first speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce him. So today we're going to learn from Turjoy Chowdhury. He is a Bangladesh visual storyteller and a researcher who has worked extensively in the Indian subcontinent, across Asia, and in the United States. Although he studied architecture instead of attending a photography institution, he has become a National Geographic photographer and explorer. Chowdhury focuses on long-term projects related to war history, conflicts, geopoliticals, human rights, and social environmental issues. His work includes projects on the aftermath of the Syrian civil war, the atomic bomb explosion history in Japan, immigrant stories in the United States, and the Rohingya refugees crisis in Bangladesh. He has also covered the impact of climate change for nearly a decade. His work has been exhibited globally and featured in a prominent publication such as National Geographic magazine, The New York Times, and The Guardian. Showbury has received numerous awards and nominations for his projects, including Tim Hethengreld Trust Visionary Awards and the National Geographic Society Storytelling Grant. That is amazing. I'm so excited. Hi, it's so good to have you here.
Hey, Turjoy, it's going to be a pleasure to have you here. Let's go with one short video that we have as an introduction, and then the floor is all yours. Thank you, Turjoy, for having this time for us today.
So when I say we have 2 years to save the world, it begs the question, who exactly?
Hey. So, Turjoy, can you please support us with your screen?
Yes. So can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly, brother.
Perfect. It's great to be here. Such an amazing arrangement. I'm super excited to share my work and experiences. I'm just sharing my screen here. Just let me know if everything's fine. Um,
Okay.
just a moment. Yes.
Now, there you go. Turjoy,
Oh,
thank you. And yeah, the floor is welcome.
yeah. So, yeah, I come from Bangladesh, the country one of the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. And for nearly a decade, I have been covering the impact of climate change in this region on the front line. So I have covered floods in different times. And Bangladesh is a riverine country, so we get to see river erosion on a very regular basis. And I have been following the courses of rivers all around the country and the Indian region. And of course, I have been focusing on the stories of climate refugees, because there are like millions of people every year. They lose their lands and they move from one place to another, living in the temporary shelter. So back in 2015, I found a community of climate migrants in India. I started working with this community, and I worked nearly for 2 years. And after losing everything, they migrated to West Bengal, the city named Kolkata. And unfortunately, they ended up being a community of scavengers. Now, uh, when this kind of stories I'm working on, one thing is extremely important: to build a relationship to these people. Spending lots of times are important to understand their lifestyle, understand their struggle, understand uh, what are the things that needed to be done. And as you can see, that the environment here is horrible, but kids are always kids, right? So they find happiness in no matter what the situation is. So another very interesting thing I observed there, that as you can see, there's some still life photographs. Now, when the kids go to the dumping ground, waste dumping ground, uh, they find certain objects that, those are, some people have thrown those away as trash, but for these kids, these are precious. So they collect all these objects and bring to their friends. And I found that extremely fascinating. Now, from the moment of being a climate, losing house and everything, land, being climate migrants, and how their life change through different stages, and the way uh, they sort of rebuild their life in a very unexpected way. One day, what happened when I was taking photographs, I observed that one kid found a photo album. Now, they were super excited. He was sharing this photo album with his friends, and I observed that they were so curious about these photographs. And of course, I was working there as a photographer. This was a pivotal moment for me. I decided that the photographs I was taking, I will print those out and I will gift those photographs to them. I started doing that. Of course, that helped me to build a very stronger connection to these people. But at the same time, another thing started happening that was extraordinary. That when every time, every single time when I was gifting my photographs to them, lots of stories started to reveal that I was not able to capture in photograph. I decided to make films. I decided to I need to document those stories behind my camera. Now, the problem I had no budget for filmmaking. I had no logistics, neither I had any crew. I only had an iPhone. To be more specific, the model number was probably iPhone 6 in my pocket. So what I did, I just decided that I'm gonna be documenting everything behind the camera with my iPhone. So now I'm gonna share one of the clip, and this will be even more clear what I'm talking about. Why this is so fascinating. So this is the photograph, one of the photographs that I took there. and I went back to them. I gifted this photograph to them.
এই খাটাচ্ছিলিস
হ্যাঁ সেই
এই থাকতে দেখ এ কি করছিল মানে
এই আটার বই মতো ছিল খুলতে পারিনি
দেখে ছুটে দেখ কোথায় মাঠে
হ্যাঁ
এগুলো গাড়িতে আসে পেয়ে যাই আমরা নিয়ে আসি বাচ্চা কাচ্চাদের খেলা করার জন্য এই আর কি যেটা ভালো মন্দ পাই সেটাই নিয়ে আসি নিয়ে এসে বাচ্চাদের জন্য দিই ওরা একটু আনন্দ হয় এই আরেকজন কলা খায় বলে আনন্দ করছে 50 টাকায় দেবে কলা দেবে যা 50 টাকাতেই দেবে তুই যা না দেবে বলছি দেবে দেবে দে তুই আগলা চিন্তা করে দেখছিস
একটা কলা দিবিনি খাবার তোরা ধরে যাচ্ছে বলে আর জলটা নোংরা করছিস কেন আমি নিয়ে আসলাম আর কষ্ট করে করে
So there are plenty of other video clips like this in the story, but the point I want to make is that what I learned, as you can see, that from the moment of giving that photograph to the kid, that was about one story, and how the story spontaneously started flowing from one point to another, and my process was following the intuition. It was not scripted, it was not well planned, but the process was trying to understand the flow of life of these people, and I just followed that. Now, the project is called Life in Waste, and in Instagram you can find a dedicated page of this project. If you're interested, you can scan the QR code, and there are plenty of other still photographs, plenty of stories, and other video clips like this, and all together you'd be able to see the bigger picture of the community. Now, yeah, going back to recently, this picture I took recently back in 2022. In this region of India and Bangladesh, we had the most awful flood in last 100 years. And of course, I wanted to cover, but this time something different happened. I was constantly asking myself that how I can tell these stories from a different perspective, because in what happens is that in visual storytelling, when we keep telling the stories in the same way over and over again, at a point it loses the impact factor. And in visual storytelling, whether that's still photograph or filmmaking, especially in the realm of this sensitive realm of climate change or this kind of topics, it's extremely important to have an impact through the work. Otherwise, we cannot expect any change, right? So what I did something completely crazy. First thing I did, I decided that I will go to these places when rest of the world, the medias and the newspaper, they start leaving the place. They are done with their job. So basically, what I mean is that mostly what happens is that people chase the spot news. But my point was, when the moment of the spot news is over, when the flood water starts decreasing, I will go at that time. There's a reason behind it, because you get to know and see the stories of the survivors from a very different perspective when the water level starts decreasing. Because that's the moment when they start, or they have to start, rebuilding their lives. And to be honest, like for me, this was an eye-opening experience. I focused on one particular community in Bangladesh. It's a fishermen and farmers community. And I started focusing on particular characters. And I started focusing on their personal stories. And all these are survivors of the worst flood. So as an example, here you can see, so this is another approach I started exploring. That is, we call it diptychs, when you put two photographs together and tell one story. So it worked perfectly for this kind of personal stories. And these are the stories of survival. So here in this picture, you can see Shornobala. She's a, of course, she was one of the survivor of the flood. In the rural areas, what happens, the livestock, she had 3 ships. For these people, these are not livestock. They are just like their family members. For her, these 3 ships were just like her children. So when there was flood, she took shelter on a boat, but at the same time, she made sure that all of her ships are safe. So she took these ships with her, and when she came back to the village, she brought these ships back as well. There was another very, as a photographer, I would say, like I was super lucky to be there at this very moment. She's Taslima. Long story short, during the flood, she took shelter in the rooftop with her children, survived there. But when the flood water started decreasing, she got back, and immediately what she did, they were running out of food. I mean, they couldn't cook or anything in the flood situation. So what they did, she immediately made a mud stove, uh, but it was extremely difficult to set fire because everything was wet. Now, when I went there, on the right side, you can see that was the very moment when she was cooking rice for the first time after the flood. And in her portrait, you can see there is a subtle spark in her eyes, and there is a subtle smile. And we had a long conversation. Uh, she told me that it was extremely challenging, but when the very moment she was able to set fire, that was the moment when she found hope. For storytelling, any form of storytelling, whether that's video or still photograph, it's extremely important to understand the moments. So I would say that the story became extremely significant because of that subtle smile, because of that very moment of hope that she found in spite of all these horrible ups and downs in life. So this is also necessary to find hope in the stories, especially when we're working on climate change, because we all know that generally it's a very awful kind of situation. But these people teach me courage. And being very honest, if my I live in a city in an apartment, if my apartment gets flooded, I'm dead. Literally, I don't know how to deal with this. generally in the city areas, we don't know how to deal with these kind of situations. But people on the front line, they are the faces of resilience. So that became the very perspective for this storytelling, that I'll be focusing on stories of the resilience. There are plenty of other stories like this, and amazing people, amazing personalities, and they're extraordinary stories of survival. Scan the QR code, it will take you to the page of the story. If you're interested, you can delve more into the stories of these amazing people. Now, next one is basically very recently I produced a video for COP28. For a while, I was working on a group of, I'll call them environmental activists, though they don't claim to be environmental activists, but in a way they're contributing to the environment. A local organization named Nirapod Bangladesh Sangstha, in English, that's Safe Bangladesh, and collaborating with a UK-based architecture charity. What they were doing is that they were training the village women, uh, and they were teaching them how to rebuild their rural houses in a more stronger way, so that they can survive during this kind of natural calamities. Now, there's a short video.
জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনে উষ্ণতা বৃদ্ধির কারণে খরা বন্যা নদী ভাঙন বেঁচে থাকার জন্য সবাই হরে সচেতন। কিভাবে পরিবেশ বান্ধব ঘর তৈরি করতে হয় প্রশিক্ষণ নেওয়ার জন্য আসছি। এখানে এসে আমি শিখলাম কিভাবে বাস ট্রিটমেন্ট করতে হয়, কিভাবে কাতলা তৈরি করতে হয়, কিভাবে মাটির ব্লক তৈরি করতে হয়, কিভাবে ঘরে ক্রোচিং তৈরি করতে হয় এবং ক্রোচিং দিলে ঘর কিভাবে মজবুত হয় সেটা জানলাম। এই মজবুত বাঁশের ঘরটা যে তৈরি করবো এর খরচা কি পরিমাণ সেটা জানলাম এবং বের করতে পারলাম। তারপর বিনোদনমূলক যেমন গানের মাধ্যমে শিখলাম, গল্পের মাধ্যমে শিখলাম, অনেক মজা করে শিখলাম, অনেক আনন্দ করে শিখলাম। যার যা প্রয়োজন বাস্তবে শিখিয়া সবাই বুঝিলাম এখন নিজের বাড়ি করি তৈয়ারি যার যা প্রয়োজন বেড়া খুঁটি চাটি মাটি কাতলা পুচিং দিয়া নিজের ঘর বানাবো নিজে সুন্দর করিয়া বাস্তবে শিখিয়া সবাই যার নিজের বাড়ি করি তৈয়ারি যার যা প্রয়োজন মনের মতো ঘর বানায়া থাকবো জীবন ভর আসুক যতই বন্যা বাদল কাল বৈশাখী ঝড় বাস্তবে শিখিয়া সবাই বুঝিলাম এখন নিজের বাড়ি করি তৈয়ারি যার যা প্রয়োজন বাস্তবে শিখিয়া সবাই বুঝিলাম এখন নিজের বাড়ি করি তৈয়ারি যার যা প্রয়োজন।
Right. So for this particular video, the process was basically understanding their process of work and understanding how they resonate. And when, as a filmmaker, when I was working there, something very interesting, a very interesting thing happened, that I started working on the script while working on the field with these people. What I mean is that as a storyteller, this is extremely important to understand the community and the people that we're working with. Because at the end of the day, what I believe that these people, they are gonna lead you to figure out what their story should be. I don't think as storytellers, we should impose any preconceived idea that, okay, the story should be like this or that. Of course, we have to build a narrative, but the narrative should come from the people that we are working with. So that was my last video clip. And of course, you can find me on Instagram. There is my website. And if you want to get in touch with me, the best way would be shooting me an email. So that's all.
Amazing, Turjoy. Really happy to have you today. I'm really touched what you mentioned, and for sure there are so many questions because I would like to make you questions, but then I remember like there's people out there also wondering what's going on. So please, let's welcome Merna Ahmed. She is the one behind the Mentimeter. And Merna.
Hello again. Let me share my screen and show you guys the questions we have so far. So the first one is easy. How did you get into working with National Geographic?
Wow. Okay. So yeah, I get that question a lot. If I want to answer this question, I'll have to tell the stories of my last decade-long journey. So it took me 2 years to be there, but long story short, I kept working on the stories that I really like to work on and I really care about. And at a point, one of the editor from National Geographic, she found my work, and then they offered me to join the magazine. So basically, keep working on yourselves, no matter
Keep
what.
working hard.
Keep working
Um,
hard. Follow your intuition. Keep working hard. Let the universe take the lead.
Amazing. And the second question is, well, related. How to get noticed by the media as a young photographer without any professional experience?
Well, so again, this answer is going to be extremely long, but long story short, I would say that so I started doing photography when I was a student. I was studying architecture, so technically I'm an architect. But that time I had a camera, and I was very much fascinated by the art of documentary photography and visual storytelling. So when I was done with my education, by that time I already had my portfolio. So one suggestion would be, no matter at what stage you are in right now, keep working on your portfolio if you really want to get noticed by any kind of media platform or anything, because at the end of the day, your work is going to take you there.
Amazing. Another question we have is, do you ever struggle with taking pictures of people suffering, like the ethical side to photography and storytelling?
Such an important question. Of course, yeah, there are plenty of moments, and we will have to face this kind of situation, especially if we decide to work in the sensitive topics like um, war and conflicts, or this kind of environmental calamities. Um, of course, I mean, there were moments when I struggled. So there is no easy answer of this question, but I'll put it in this way that of course it's necessary to follow the intuition, and also we have to keep this in mind that what is the purpose of our work. If we really think that the work we're producing that can eventually empower people, inform people, educate people, oftentimes we have to make photographs in distressing situations. Those are not, I mean, of course, those are not very sweet, but there is always a bigger perspective of that. Maybe that that one photograph can help other millions of people by building their awareness. So it's a little tricky, a little difficult, but yeah, that's how it is.
Such an insightful answer. Like, it must be super difficult to navigate. I wouldn't know how to do it, honestly. And then the last question we have is, if we want to do something about wars, for instance, what's happening in Palestine, but we don't live there, what can we do? Sharing stories through social media, does it actually help?
Wow. So such an amazing question. So when it comes to social media, of course, sharing stories on social media definitely helps, but there is a but. That is, we also have to be very mindful about the contents, what we are sharing, because not necessarily all the contents that we get to see on social media are being presented or shared in a right way. There might be controversies. So when it comes to social media or spreading anything on a very large scale, we always should um, cross check. It's a tough process. We always should ask ourselves twice that what would be the positive impacts or negative impacts, whether this content is, um, as we know, like there are lots of like fake news stuffs, there are lots of propaganda stuffs. It's complex. So before sharing anything on social media, it's necessary to rethink, and especially when the contents are extremely sensitive like this.
Yeah.
Of course, check your sources always. That's it for me, and thank you so much for answering our questions.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Merman. Thank you so much, Turju, for all of the presentation and information. I'm sure we all learned so much, and now we know how to tell stories effectively. So thank you so much for today, and hope you have a good day. Now to continue, thank you. To continue with the session, it's my pleasure to introduce to the next speaker. So today we're gonna meet Alana Vejakot. Alana Vejakot is a marine ecologist, science communicator, and an ocean advocate with 16 years experience working in marine research, conservation, and education in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean. Alana's passion for the ocean began as a child during her daily play in an expansive mangrove ecosystem that bordered her childhood community in the Bahamas. This play bloomed into a career in marine science, dappled with experience in shark research, reef health, and coral restoration techniques. Alana is currently the coral restoration specialist at Coral Vita, where her daily work helps to restore the world's dying coral reefs. In her spare time, Alana uses her skills as a free diver to create underwater imagery that raises awareness of the plight of our oceans. It's a pleasure to have you here, Alana. Thank you for joining us.
So when I say we have 2 years to save the world, it begs the question, who exactly has 2 years to save the world?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Alana Valakot, and I'm currently located in the Bahamas at Coral Vita. We are the world's first land-based commercial coral farm for reef restoration. And I have a quick presentation to show you just to bring you up to speed on what corals are, what we're up to at Coral Vita. And then I'm actually going to take you over to the tanks where you get to see this process in real time. So let me pull up my slide. 1 second. Okay, so again, I'll be presenting on Coral Vita. But first, a little bit about myself. I'm the coral restoration specialist at Coral Vita. We've been around for about 5 years, and I've been with the company just about since the very beginning. My job description has kind of morphed over the years as we are still a very small company. However, at the moment, to keep myself sane, I kind of divide my job into two halves. First would be our ocean operations, our field operations. I'm a scuba diver, and I've been scuba diving for over 17 years. And so I'm pretty good at it. Anything to do with in-water operations, whether that's coral surveys, looking for healthy wild corals to bring back to our farm for our process, looking for new sites to restore, taking care of our in-ocean nurseries, I have a part in. And then the other part is that I always kind of got the too talkative check mark in my report card in primary school and in high school. And so I've kind of turned this love of communicating and pairing it with the love of the ocean. I've smashed them together, and I work in education and outreach. So I speak to student groups that come to the farm, tourists that come to the farm, as well as locals, and of course, people like you. So first, my question to you is, when you think about a coral reef, what do you think of? If you visualize a coral reef, what comes to mind? What colors, what creatures, what uses, what importances? And I hope that you think about this image as we go through the presentation, because at the end of it, you're going to see coral reefs in a whole new light. But firstly, what is a coral in the first place? We kind of understand what a coral reef is in a way, but let's dissect what a coral actually is. For some of you who don't know, corals are actually animals, but they do have a plant component and also a rock component. So if we zoom in, kind of using a magnifying glass, if you take a look at a coral, you'll discover that corals are actually animals. Most corals are colonial animals, meaning that they're made up of hundreds of thousands, depending on the size, could be millions of these little individual creatures called coral polyps. They are a part of the phylum Cnidaria, which basically means goopy bodies, stinging cells, lives in the ocean, and corals are just a very small section of that phylum. The photo over on the right, you'll see a really cool illustration of what a coral polyp looks like and its anatomy. So it has tentacles, stinging cells, a mouth, and a stomach. And that tells scientists that corals are also predatory animals, which is hilarious because the slide before, this elkhorn coral here that you see does not look like an animal, and it also does not give predatory. But it is, and that's so amazingly cool. So as predatory animals, they're eating other things to make energy, and their prey is mainly a type of plankton. However, they do have a secret powerhouse that lives within their tissues. It's a type of marine plant, or it's a type of algae called zooxanthellae, and together they have a symbiosis. In this case, though, it's a mutualistic symbiosis. So kind of think Venom, but at the movie Venom, but at the end of the day, they're both working together for a common goal. It's a you scratch my back, I scratch yours type situation. Both partners, the coral polyp and the zooxanthellae, have a part to play. So for the zooxanthellae, what's really cool is that they are photosynthesizing. And when plants photosynthesize, they make energy and they also make oxygen. And zooxanthellae's part of the deal is to give that to the coral polyp. And then in exchange, the coral polyp then gives the zooxanthellae shelter, a place to stay, and also waste products that plants love. So again, it's a you scratch my back, I scratch yours type situation. But then also as a bonus, the zooxanthellae give corals their pretty colors, because otherwise coral polyps are completely clear. So if the zooxanthellae is purple, the coral is purple. If the zooxanthellae is green, the coral is green. I think you get it. But then the last part, and the part that you're probably most familiar with, is that corals secrete an exoskeleton. And this exoskeleton is made out of limestone or calcium carbonate. I do have some pieces here. These coral exoskeletons, they did not die here at the farm, disclaimer, but they're really cool to look at because across their surface, and you can see in the image on the left, you'll see lots of small holes. In each of those holes is where a coral polyp would sit, be connected to its neighbor, and together they all secrete this skeleton in the same way that you make your own skeleton, which is really cool. So now back to a coral reef. This is when species of corals of different sizes and shapes and colors and niches or niches all come together, they grow together, they create towers, they're connected by other creatures, and they create these amazing, prolific ecosystems. So I hope now that you look at this image again, coral reefs look way cooler. But speaking of how cool they are, they're actually very valuable. Coral reefs are one of the most valuable ecosystems on the planet. Annually, they generate $350 million for the Bahamas, but for the planet, they give us something called ecosystem services, basically stuff we get for free from nature. All of that is said to be worth $2.7 trillion in value, and that's a gross underestimation as to exactly how valuable reefs are. So here are some of these ecosystem services, or those free things that we get from coral reefs. So coastal protection is a big one, especially for me growing up and living in the Bahamas. Coral reefs are our first line of defense against big waves coming from storms. And when you pair them with mangrove ecosystems, like what you just learned earlier, they can reduce wave energy by up to 97%. And that can mean the difference between me getting away to higher ground and also me not being able to. Then I'm sure I don't have to tell you the amount of food that coral reefs provide us. They provide food for hundreds of millions of people around the world. And for people living in more rural coastal settings, like a lot of Bahamians, it's our main source of protein. Well, they produce our main source of protein, which is seafood. And then 25% of all marine life rely on coral reefs at some point in their life cycle. So that's 1 in every 4 marine creatures rely on coral reefs, whether that's to find a mate, to rest if they're migratory, to find food, or maybe that's where they spend their entire life cycle. So they're really, really important, and also they're really biodiverse. And because of that biodiversity, we are way more likely to find cures to today's diseases and illnesses through combing through that biodiversity. Early COVID-19 treatments were synthesized from reefs. Those with Alzheimer's, there are treatments for them coming from reefs, and also those with certain autoimmune diseases and cancers. There are treatments for their pain and inflammation coming from reefs. So really, really important. And then on a more deeper note, it's a very big part of Bahamian culture, and I'm sure to local coastal peoples around the world. For the Bahamas, 2 of our top 3 industries rely on reefs to be healthy. That's tourism and fishing. And of course, you cannot have success in either of those industries without reefs being healthy to support those industries. Unfortunately, all of these ecosystem services that you and I benefit from on a daily basis are under threat, in that reefs are dying. And we have lost half of the world's reefs within the last few decades. And if we choose to do nothing at all, if we ignore it, we could lose almost all of global reefs by the year 2050. And that may sound far away, but it's the year 2024. That's only maybe 26 years from now. So it's really scary to know. And reefs are dying due to many stressors that are compounding on each other, like ocean acidification, climate change, overfishing, pollution, and of course, climate change is exacerbating all of these stressors and killing reefs way faster than they can rejuvenate. But there is hope, because restoration has proven to revitalize these reefs. Over on the left, we have a really degraded reef, not a whole lot of life going on, but after a few simple techniques and a few years of care and monitoring, the reef on the left, that's that same reef, rejuvenated and revitalized. However, there are current models that just don't scale up very well. We could lose 90% of reefs by 2050, so we really have to think about scaling up that impact. And that's exactly what we're up to at Coral Vita. Again, we're the world's first land-based commercial coral farm for reef restoration specifically, and we're working on creating a global network of these high-tech coral farms to scale up that impact, to ensure that we do not lose 90% of reefs by 2050, and to ensure that our oceans can remain healthy for future generations. What we're working on is accelerating corals' growth through using specific techniques, and also working on bolstering their resilience against the effects that climate change is having on our oceans. Climate change is making our oceans warmer and more acidic, and corals are a very picky creature. They can adapt, but the rate that climate change is changing our ocean temperature and our ocean's pH is too fast for corals, and they can't keep up. And this is something that we hope to solve at Coral Vita. And this new approach unlocks scalable revenue models. I did mention that we are a commercial coral farm, and we have kind of 2 main pillars of restoration, of revenue, sorry. One is restoration as a service. There are many stakeholders who understand how valuable reefs are, and through that would want to restore reefs for the good of their own country, for the good of their business, or for the good of their group. That could be governments, resorts and developers, cruise ship operators, in case they need to dredge a new jetty. They can hire us to move corals out of the way of that impact and protect them by putting them somewhere else where they can survive and where people can still enjoy them. And speaking of people enjoying it, we're also an eco-tourism center where locals, students, visitors can come and understand how important reefs are and also want to take care of them. We can restore reefs until the cows come home. However, if the public does not understand how important they are and their part that they can play, the work that we're doing is pointless. And also, Coral Vita is not for our co-founders. Wherever we establish a Coral Vita, it could be Coral Vita Mauritius, Coral Vita Japan, Coral Vita Saudi Arabia. The Coral Vita would be for that community and to foster that love and that caretakership of reefs to that community. And we've been doing a great job so far. We won the Earthshot Prize in 2021, where we won £1 million to continue our work in the Revive Our Oceans category. And that was such an amazing day. We've had lots of press, and I'm really, really excited to show you what's going on in the tanks. So if you'll just give me a moment, I'm going to move over.
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Cool. So we are over here at the tanks. These are our raceways. It's just a fancy way to say tanks. And in these tanks, we have water. And this is ocean water because corals are a marine creature. There's no such thing as freshwater corals. And in here, you can see every step of the process and how we can grow corals at accelerated rates or encourage them to grow at accelerated rates. So firstly, it starts with wild corals. First, we go over to a reef, we figure out if we can rehabilitate it or not, and then we get to work and we pick up wild colonies of coral. So here we have a living coral colony, and if you take a look at kind of all of those small lumps across the surface, each of those lumps are a coral polyp, showing you that this is a colonial animal, an actual living creature, which is why I have to put it back in the water. And so how we can encourage them to grow at accelerated rates is through a process called microfragmentation. Essentially, taking these wild colonies of coral and then using a special tool called the diamond bandsaw, we skillfully cut small fragments of coral, like this. So science has found that when you cut a coral, it triggers a rapid growth response in the same way that your skin would respond if you accidentally scratch it. Your skin begins to regrow, to grow over that wound. And corals are doing the same thing when you cut them skillfully. So over time, the coral begins to grow over the microfragments. So you can kind of see that there. You can see all of the little polyps, and it's actually beginning to grow across this cement plug that we've given it to grow on. And this coral hasn't been in our farm for very long. Corals are a very slow growing species, and through this process, we can encourage or accelerate that growth. But then the next step is when we place them back together to end up with a larger coral. So we're gonna go this way. I'm really glad I rehearsed this before. Yes, you can see more of our raceways.
I am so happy, Alana. I am here flipping like this is amazing. Thank you for doing this. I'm loving it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so the next step, hold on, you can't see. Okay, so you can kind of see it, and I'll bring it up closer so that you can really take a good look. So the next step is we take those microfragments, granted they have to be from the same coral colony, and we place them across a surface called a fusion cookie, because the idea is when they begin to grow over the plug, they will eventually run into each other. But what's really cool is that they will actually recognize themselves. It's like, oh shoots, it's me. And then they fuse and they become and act as one coral colony. You can see where they're touching there. I have an even better example to show you of a really successful coral cookie. So this coral cookie is almost completely covered in living tissue. There's hardly any space. That's the substrate or the surface that we gave it originally. And this is what we hope to accomplish. So then this fusion cookie, of course, we only borrow the corals for a little while, then goes back into the ocean. And how we outplant is what we call it. How we put these corals back onto the reef is we have a really cool underwater drill. We drill a hole into dead coral or into rock. We squirt a bit of very special cement into that hole, and there's a screw. Under each of these coral cookies, we place them into that hole, and we can kind of screw that in, just like that.
Hey, Alana, I'm loving this. Just can you check, like, can you turn off your camera and turn it on? Because some people is saying that there's a black screen right now, but it's just the last minutes.
No problem.
Are doing. Just to try. Yeah, let's hope that works. So please keep sharing what you are doing, guys. I need to visit you guys. I'm like,
you absolutely do.
I really need to go there. Please, Alana, we're hearing you.
So hopefully everyone can see me now, but I'll definitely show you this cookie again just in case you missed it. So this species of coral is called staghorn coral or Acropora cervicornis. And this species of coral is a very quickly growing species. This species grows maybe 12 to 15 centimeters a year. And using this microfragmentation process combined with using a fusion cookie, we can accelerate that growth and end up with a larger coral in the fraction of the time it would take a small, tiny coral to grow to this size in the wild without this process. Let me put this one back. And then we're going to go back over to where I was earlier. But before I do, this is our entire coral farm. And this is just the beginning. So I'm going to head back over to my chair where I was earlier. Don't go anywhere, BRB.
Let's wait for Alana, but you guys, did you enjoy that? All those pools? I am right now having so many ideas, and so blessed we are, guys, to see this here with Alana and the process that the corals are growing, then they are taking them in new positions. Actually, Alana, I got the chance to see these structures of coral that you are like even doing like some art, but with coral under the ocean. Have you seen those?
Underwater sculptures?
Yes, with coral.
Yes. So underwater sculptures can be beautiful. However, what sometimes can happen is that these sculptures are left to be colonized with corals. That's called passive restoration, where you kind of put something down there and you hope for it to become a reef one day. You just learned that corals are very, very slow growing species. The slowest growing corals only grow like 1 to 2 centimeters a year. And so by using this method of active restoration, putting living corals onto a structure and then onto the reef, soon you'll have a reef in no time. It supercharges that process.
Wow. No, Alana, I was behind the scenes just taking notes and learning so much about I didn't even know that corals were an animal. Like, just for that fact, wow, I've learned so much. So as well as I know Mentimeter has so many more questions. So I'm gonna allow Myrna to jump in and read the questions.
Yes, we have so many. Let me share my screen one more time.
That's awesome.
The first question. We love it. The first question is, how did Coral Vita start, and how do you start a business in sustainability?
Okay, so I'm going to do my very best to answer these questions as I mostly work in the field. But Coral Vita got started. Our two co-founders are Sam Teicher and Gator Halpern, and they actually were good buddies in graduate school. They both went to Yale, and honestly, they were sharing a beer trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with our degrees? But they also were really upset at the pace that science and research and policy were actually creating effective change to make a positive change in this planet.
Mhm.
And so they were kind of looking for common chords to figure out what can we do to help supercharge any sort of plight that the planet has. They both have a love for the ocean and a love for scuba diving, and Sam Teicher had just finished up a coral restoration project in Mauritius that when the project was said to be done, the reef wasn't restored. And so from then came the idea of creating Coral Vita as a business.
That is so cool. And what did you say? What are baby corals called, or is it technically correct to call the coral fragment baby coral? That's such a cute question.
It is a really cute question. So corals actually go through a whole metamorphosis. So they can sexually reproduce, and they can also asexually reproduce. So for an asexually reproduced coral, as in like if a piece of coral broke off of a larger colony, that would be called a fragment. It's technically a baby coral, but if you're thinking about like brand spanking new, genetically diverse baby coral, they go through a metamorphosis where first they start off as egg and sperm, then an embryo, then they turn into the larval stage, which is a planula, and then a spat, and then it's a juvenile coral. So I'm not sure there's an actual name, like how a baby goat is called a kid. I'm not sure if there is a word for an actual baby coral. They should make one.
Oh, okay. They should. It would be really cute. And next is, how can we as individuals help the coral reefs?
There are so many things you can do. You don't have to be working at Coral Vita. You don't even have to be a swimmer to help protect coral reefs. First thing is that everybody plays a role in this, although this is not completely our fault, but it's getting a handle on our consumption of single-use plastics. If you don't need to consume that plastic bag, that plastic fork or spoon after you got takeout, or if you need a drink of water, there's so many alternatives. You can take your own grocery bag, you can have your own utensils for takeout, and you can also have a water bottle. I know this whole Stanley water bottle thing is trending right now. One Stanley is cool. Having more than one Stanley kind of defeats the purpose. So hopefully you get the idea. I love to engage in product swapping where I pick something in my cupboard and I try to figure out if I can find a more sustainable option. So instead of a plastic jar, can I get a glass jar? Or can I get it in a bar form instead of in a liquid form?
That is so valid. I hate plastics. And the last question is, that's someone who wants to reach out to you with an idea for a collaboration. What's the best way to connect with you?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me personally is through my Instagram. It's my first name and last name. My last name is missing a T in the slides. I do have a QR code for you. That's for me. Just give me 1 second. I'll bring it up for you. Check it out. Okay, so for Coral Vita, to get in touch with Coral Vita specifically, this is the QR code on the thank you page. But then to collaborate with me specifically, there's the QR code on this page. And both those QR codes will either take you to Coral Vita's IG or to my IG. If you reach out to me, you reach out to Coral Vita. If you reach out to Coral Vita, you also reach out to me because I check both Instagram accounts. But if neither of those codes work for you, my name is spelled up there. My IG is just my name on Instagram, Alana Vellicott.
Actually,
Amazing.
I will follow you and I will write you because it was such an amazing session. Honestly, I enjoyed much, Alana. I remember myself when I was watching like these TV shows where I was Sauma Fu, or I don't know if you know them, you know, like
I've never actually watched Zubumafu, but I know about it.
I love it so much. So thank you. And I guess right now, where's Merna? Why is not Merna here? Because right now we have also a small break, and Merna is supposed to be here to help me introduce.
Hi. We're gonna go to the break now and listen to DJ Figo. That is so exciting. I love the session. Hi there.
To say exactly has 2 years to save the world? The answer is every person on this planet.
Yo, listen me and tell them just ready to be laughing. Tune again, tune again. Anywhere we go, we are number one. Kill all the sound them one by one. Anywhere we go, we are number one. Kill all the sound them one by one. Anywhere we go, we are number one. Kill all the sound them one by one. Anywhere we go, we are number one. Kill all the sound them one by one. Kill all the sound them one by one.
We're jamming, and I hope the jam is gonna last. No bullets will stop us now. We need the beggar, we won't bow. Neither can be bought nor sold. Pure defend right, judge the children must unite. Oh, life is worth much more than gold. We're jamming, 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 and we're jamming in the name of the Lord. We're jamming, 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 and we're jamming in the name of the Lord. We're jamming, 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 we're jamming right straight from yours. We're jamming, 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 we're jamming. Hope you like jamming too. Jamming, we're jamming, jamming, we're jamming, we're jamming, jamming. I want to jam with you now. We're jamming, we're jamming. Girl, I hope you like the jam. I hope you like the
Come catch a vibe, 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 vibe. Come catch a vibe, 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 vibe. Steps in Gucci slides. Come catch a vibe with me. You came to my section. Don't act shy with me. We can light up. You can come fly with me. The night ain't done. There's no tiring me. Stepped in everything Gucci. Come catch a vibe, 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 vibe. Come catch a vibe with me. Catch a vibe, vibe. Stepped in Gucci slides. Come catch a vibe with me. Stepped in instant vibes. Stepped in everything Gucci. Stepped in everything Gucci. Stepped in everything Gucci. Stepped in everything Gucci. Stepped in everything Gucci.
Wow, Elfigo, can you hear me? I now. Hey, ma'am. Brother. So, I have a party. Over now. Thank you, Theo. Thank you. That was amazing. So, clap for Theo. Yeah. And thank you so much, Elfigo. It was impressive. Hannah, did you enjoy it?
Wow, I was like, this is a great break. I'm just like here dancing.
Recharging. Hannah, let me tell you something. I really had
Thank you so much.
So happy that we can hear this music today. But right now, let me introduce you to our next speaker, Michelle Sanders. Her work has taken her to the Arctic, South Pacific, Europe, North America, for topics including the trade of tortoise and tigers, the accelerating loss of the Arctic sea ice, and stopping development of the largest oil field proposed in the North Sea. Michelle has filmed, Hannah, listen to this. Michelle has filmed underwater in Europe and Australasia. She has worked with a variety of mediums from traditional documentary to short form viral content, reaching global audiences on a range of platforms for clients including Netflix, Project Impact, Stop Cambo, National Wild Federation, Human Society, BBC Digital, and more. So let's go with the video and please welcome Michelle Sanders.
So when I say we have 2 years to save the world, it begs the question, who exactly?
Hi, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. It's going to be hard to follow the amazing DJ set that we just had. but I am going to be giving a talk on visual design and composition. So how to complement your stories with impactful visuals. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, let me see. Cool. Can we all see that? Yeah, great. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah, so visual design and composition. What is that? Basically, that is how to use visuals to best complement your stories. And to get into it, I'll start with a bit about me. Well, actually, first to say, visually compelling pieces help to catch viewers' attentions and to relay your message. So while visuals are not maybe the first thing to think about when you're thinking about telling a story, they absolutely are critical to getting your message across and keeping viewers' attentions, especially in our kind of very saturated media environment where we're seeing so many things all the time. How can we grab people right away? So a bit about me. I am a filmmaker with a background in social science. So I started by studying anthropology at New York University, and then a master's in biodiversity and conservation at Oxford. But throughout that time, I got practical training in filmmaking. I say that mostly to say that, you know, it's not a requirement to go to film school to learn how to use a camera. And it's not a requirement to have done that to become a storyteller. I've learned always practical experience, trial and error, picking up a camera and just figuring out what it does, doing a bunch of Googling. And I really, really support that as a method for filmmaking. And I also want to highlight, I'm not sure, you know, the different levels of skills that everyone has that's tuning in right now, but it doesn't actually matter what camera you're using. It's what you do with it and what story you're telling. So some of these cameras look kind of big, but really your iPhone is as good a thing as anything. They say, you know, whatever camera you have, that's the best camera because it's just about getting going. So I've done filming on a sailboat across the coast of Cornwall, documenting human-ocean relationships. I went to Norway and the South Pacific to look at deep sea mining, including shooting underwater for that piece. I also document events in London, specifically nature events. I'm based in London. Last year, I went to the Arctic to shoot a music film, which if we have time at the end, I will actually show for you guys. It would kind of be the premiere, maybe show you a bit of it to shoot. Yeah, so music film in the Arctic. I also regularly shoot for protest organizations in London to stop fossil fuel projects. But I also have a background shooting more commercial projects for the Oscars, the Apollo Theater, those sorts of things. And my passion at the end of the day is the ocean. So anything that gets me underwater is just my absolute favorite thing to do. So I figured I wanted to make this as accessible as possible, not sure sort of what everyone's different kind of levels are with visual composition. So kind of the biggest general rules, what I would say is, first and foremost, you want to shoot with the light. And what that means is that you have whatever your subject is, which is usually a human face, or it could be an animal, or it could be a plant, or even a mushroom, that has to have the best light. So if you have light in the background that's brighter than your subject, it's not going to look as nice. So for example, with people, it can be really nice to shoot on an overcast day because it's more favorable light. I don't know if you can, you know, with my face right now, it's quite a bright light. So you can see all the little crevices in my face. So an overcast day can be really good for shooting interviews and that sort of thing, to keep it quite the same, but it's not a rule. Really, the day that works is the best day to be filming. And then even though I'm talking about visual design and composition, I would also say that audio is incredibly important. And actually most filmmakers say that, you know, people will be happy with a shaky shot or, you know, something that's not quite in focus, but they won't listen to something with bad audio. So as good as you can get your audio, that is the first step, and then really focus on those visuals. And, you know, since we're in kind of the era of TikTok and Instagram, for vertical videos, because you have such like a narrow frame, I would say keep the camera still mostly, especially when you're starting out. And then have the movement go through the frame. And also if you're filming with a person, you know, keep them straight, or keep yourself straight if you're filming yourself, because that movement side to side is unforgiving on a phone, if that makes sense. So, and then in horizontal, if you have kind of a camera that allows it, I would say shoot 4K so that you can crop into vertical, because, you know, as my filmmaking has developed, there's very few pieces I've made that haven't needed vertical cropping for kind of promoting it on Instagram or TikTok or wherever online. And then there's also the fundamental rule of visuals, which is that if you're using a camera that has the shutter speed and the frame rate, your shutter speed needs to be double your frame rate. Why? So film is not the same as photo. Photos, you can, if you want something to be really crisp, you shoot at like 1/200th of a second. In films, because films are compiled by a series of photos, there's this thing called motion blur. So if I wave my hand just now, you can sort of see it moving, right? If you take too many photos, it would show up like this. Whereas if you keep your shutter speed as double your frame rate, it shows up like it should. So shooting at 25 frames a second, I double that, that's 1/50th. Slow motion is 100 frames a second, I double that, that's 1/200th. So, and if that flies over your head, totally fine. You know, your iPhone's going to do that automatically. Some of your cameras will do that automatically. But for those of you that really want to try out new cameras, that's the way to go. Great. And then how to work with your camera. So this is a long process. I've learned a lot of times in different environments how hard it is to work with your camera in different ways. And I would say that this shot of me on a boat is like one of the, one of the hardest environments, because you have the boat rocking to side to side. So it's a question of like, how do I keep this stable? Two big things. So the first is you want to have 3 points of contact. So you can see in this image, I have my camera strap around my neck, and then I have my hand down here and my hand over here. And that will help keep you very stable. And then, you know, over time you learn how to like move your arms properly, even your legs. It's quite a physical thing. And that's going to help you have these visually compelling, stable shots. The other big thing is how long you hold the shot for. So at least 5 seconds of filming, but ideally 10. And it sounds like not that much time, but in reality, it's really painful. I still struggle with it, where I just want to move on to the next thing. Like I've shot 4 seconds of a flower, it's time to go. But no, you really want those 10 seconds, because you just don't know when you're editing how long you want to hold those visuals for. And then there's also movement. Am I going to move? Or am I going to have something move in front of me, in front of the camera? In terms of light, to get a good visual composition, there's this thing called a light meter on a DSLR, and you don't want to go above +1 or -1 on that bar at the bottom of your DSLR. Otherwise, it's called blowing out. And that means your shot is overexposed, so it just turns out white. You know, have you ever seen those images where like the whole sky is white rather than seeing the clouds and the blues and the grays or anything like that? So you want to kind of lock in on that -1 to +1, but ideally 0. But you can't always get it right. And the thing that you're looking for is that your subject has that, because sometimes it will be really bright in your background. You have to kind of ignore it and it will just blow out the background, but that's okay. If your subject is properly in focus and properly has the right light, you'll have a good visual design and composition. Again, I know I'm not speaking about audio, but it's so important that I just want to say you should always be listening for things like planes and sirens, people talking too loudly, those sorts of things. Just pause for a second while you're filming and then get back into it, especially on an interview, because it's going to be really hard to communicate your visual story without that good audio that's clean. And then the last and biggest thing, patience. Let things happen. You know, if you're telling a story and you're telling a story with a person visually, you have to wait for them to do things. You have to wait for them to say things. And that just takes time. And so a really, really big thing with visual composition is just waiting, holding that shot longer, letting things happen, letting people relax into being around you and your camera. And then, yeah, so moving on to composition specifically. I'd mentioned previously that there's kind of 2 ways to think about composing your image. There's moving the camera or movement within the frame, so within the picture itself. Moving the camera can mean starting out really far away from something and then zooming in by physically moving. Sometimes people will move the camera itself and zoom in there. It's harder to get that right, so I would say move your body. And then there's also having movement in the frame. So having a frame that's, you know, static, like on a tripod or, you know, leaned up against a stack of books. That's one of my favorite methods. Up against a tree if you're out filming in the environment, wherever you can keep it steady, and then let things happen. Let someone make a cup of coffee. Let someone walk away into the distance. Or, you know, in this shot in the bottom left, I let him walk around and forage for mushrooms and kept this camera really, really steady. There's also having a mixture of shots. So we call it a wide. So the wide is these really far away shots that get you out into the whole landscape or zoom out from the character that you're going to have. Then there's close-ups. So having someone's face, having, you know, the flares from a protest. So this would be a wide, and then this would be the close-up. And then there's also detail shots. So you have, oh, well, they're pointing to a map. They're talking about a map. Let's show the hands. And there's also, you know, ones beyond that, like the super close up or the medium shot, but I think that's getting a little bit too into the details. So we'll leave those. But basically, when you're thinking of composing your film, thinking of composing your images, think about how the mixture of these things to tell your story. So if someone's talking about, you know, how they're reforesting an area of Scotland, you might get them a wide of them around a bunch of trees in the landscape, so you know where they are. And then you get a close-up of their face, and then you get the details of them planting the trees. So you really want to be thinking about what they're saying and how your visuals can complement that. And so for that reason, you have to repeat a lot of the same actions from different angles. If you're filming with yourself, that's easy to negotiate. If you're talking to someone else, you sometimes have to kind of kindly ask them, like, can we do this again? I really want to get another shot of it. And so that's where things like communication can be really valuable. And yeah, so basically that's called B-roll. So B-roll of things that your character talks about. You want to be able to to show exactly what people are saying. Most of film is people talking underneath what's called the B-roll. So for example, in this, I had the mushroom forager talking about the type of mushroom he was foraging for, but you didn't really see the interview at all. You just saw him in the landscape, and then you saw like a shot over his shoulder, and then a shot of him picking the mushrooms. So the visuals are really important to get, and you have to listen in your interviews, or if you're not doing an interview or just kind of doing voiceover, just thinking about all the different kinds of visuals that you can get to cover that film with really beautiful stuff. And then there's the ways that you can elevate your visuals. And one of the ways is archive material. And I wanted to point to a really cool new resource called Open Planet, which has a massive archive, especially of natural history footage, that you can freely use for environmental purposes. And I think that's a really, really cool thing to do, especially if you're starting out, to use these visuals to elevate whatever your message is.
Hey, hello, how are you doing? I was just wondering, is it just me or Michelle freezed? But as she was sharing, patience is important. And when you are doing this kind of shooting, I think what she just mentioned about waiting for the shot, because sometimes a mistake that I'm personally doing is trying to build the scene, but when it's not organically, it doesn't have the same essence, and you cannot communicate what you are intending to, even though that you put there like your own, all your energy. And yeah, let's wait for them, but let's bring Hannah on the stage so I'm not here alone.
Yeah, no, I was also reflecting about the importance of patience, and if we want to effectively communicate what we see, then we have to know how to deliver, right? So I think Michelle texted she's back. Probably she lost her connection. Hello.
Yeah, I lost my connection. I am in a beautiful part of Scotland that is very remote. I'll show you talk about visual design and composition.
Wow.
It's gorgeous, but it is a little remote.
No worries. Actually, we're just sharing how important patience is. So we're just waiting. But please keep going. And you still have a couple of minutes, and then we go with some questions, Michelle.
Perfect. Am I back to sharing my screen? Yeah, perfect. Hopefully it won't disappear again. So there's also such a thing as color palette. So in my most recent film, Arctic Ice Under the Midnight Sun, which you can see just here, it's all about Arctic sea ice disappearing, but it's a music film, so there's no talking in it. And so I was like, I have to pull out all of the blues that I can get in this to really show how gorgeous this sea ice is. So you can really think like, oh, I really want this to look really green. I want this to look really, I don't know, purple, and really look for those details in your environment and pull them out. Foreground and background, so you can have different things happening in different places. So in this top shot, the mushroom is in focus, but he's foraging in the background. And then here as well, you have these people who are protesting inside the Environment Agency. And then you have people in the mirrors kind of looking at them like, what's going on? Another really big thing visually is emotions. Humans, we are animals. And we really relate to emotions. So if you can get people's emotions, that's super important. Music as well. So get your visuals complemented with really, really good music. And then finally, graphics and font design. So picking really compelling fonts and good design will really elevate your visuals. and bring your design and composition to a new level. And I can show a little bit of some examples, but I don't know if I have time. Do I have time, or should I leave it there?
No, yes. Let's play one, I guess, and then we go with the questions with Myrna. Let's
great.
If the video plays, because I'm not quite sure. We cannot hear you now. I think you're disconnect your.
Michelle, I think your mic is.
Oh, sorry. Got it. Yeah, so I'm going to show just the first minute of the Arctic ice piece. I probably shouldn't share the whole thing because it's not released yet, but it will show you how much visuals can do.
See.
Yeah, so this is actually the first time I've ever shown it, so. Oh, actually, it's on a different screen. Let me see if I can get it. Video.
I'm happy now. I'm excited. I want to see it.
Share screen.
Because we have a with Reforesting for Peace to connect with some youngsters from Norway that are working also on the Arctic.
Oh, cool. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's some plans for 2025, but let's see.
Will it let me do my entire screen? Lost permission.
No rush, not that much.
Open system. I really want to get it to work, but we'll have to see.
Yes,
there we go. This might work.
Nice. Wait, I think. Are you sharing?
Not just yet. I'm just trying to get the permissions right. Share screen. Is that going? No. Oh no.
Wait. Are you? Is it there? Are you sure you're not sharing it yet?
I tried to, and it just wasn't letting me. I'm trying one more thing as a video file, and if not, we might have to leave it.
One more chance.
I don't think that one's going either. Bummer.
Oh, is here. I saw it.
It is. Okay.
Can you make it again as a video? Yes, it's here.
Okay. Does that work? Polar bear. But that's a little sneak peek of what you can do with visuals, even in absence of people talking.
That was beautiful, like actually mesmerizing. That was so pretty. And now we're gonna do some questions. The first one is, can you submit movies filmed on phone cameras to places like film festivals? how would that resolution look like?
Yes, absolutely. I think there was a film that won at like Tribeca Film Festival, which is a really big film festival. I think it was called Orange, and it was shot entirely on an iPhone. And it doesn't just have to be iPhones; it can be Samsung. Samsung's really great. I would say the phone cameras have really, really good resolutions these days. So, you know, if you can shoot 4K, that's great. Doesn't have to. 1080p is good as well, but it will say it in there, 24, 25 frames a second. That's all good.
Okay, amazing. And the second and last question, because of a time constraint, what video editing programs do you recommend we get? Someone has an idea for a short film, but has never done anything with video.
Great. Yeah, great question. I use Premiere personally. It has a monthly subscription and it's a little expensive. Final Cut Pro has an outright price, but also a little bit expensive. Some people
Mhm.
use DaVinci Resolve, which I think is free. And then there's things like CapCut that are you can use freely as well. So a lot of people use different things. There's lots of ways to use it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. There are more questions, but we'll email them to you because of just time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And thank you, Myrma, for the questions. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. So today we have Inewe Neukimo. Inewe Neukimo is a 21-year-old student studying international relations and cinema at the San Francisco University of Quito. He belongs to the Waroni nationality from the Amazon jungle of Ecuador. In addition to his studies, Inewe is actively involved in the indigenous film collective called Mulu TV and the Amazonian Youth Collective. His primary focus is on empowering children and young individuals, sharing knowledge about how they can create positive change in the world through their voices and ideas, starting from their own communities. Inewe emphasizes the pride of being indigenous, encouraging youth to embrace it now and always. He believes that biodiversity is the essence of life and advocates for the united world built on love and empathy, working towards a better future for the entire planet. I'm so excited for this talk, and now let's see what we can learn from him.
Es un poco de lo que es el cine desde los pueblos. Por eso el título de esta presentación se llama Historia desde los pueblos. Empezando por mí, para que me conozcan un poco, el nombre que tengo es en honor a mi abuelo que no conocí, pero el rostro y las fortalezas que tengo me hacen conocer mucho más sobre él y lo que la familia me ha contado sobre él. Y también quiero compartirles que yo, como nací en la selva, me encanta estar tiempo en la naturaleza y sentir la paz y de toda esa naturaleza alrededor de mí. Y también otra cosa curiosa sobre mí es que me encanta conocer a personas y saber historias, ya que en este mundo no estoy solo yo, sino hay muchas personas y muchas historias alrededor de mí. Y para este tema yo siempre empiezo por el storytelling, que es el narrar historias a través de diferentes formas, y por eso yo tengo una frase que me encanta, que es: cuando contamos una historia, conectamos, y después de conectar, vivimos esas historias. Entonces yo he puesto 3 fotos y seguramente se están preguntando por qué se pone y cómo el storytelling se relaciona con estas imágenes. Entonces, para el storytelling también necesitamos narrar algo que enganche a la gente y dar un contexto a la gente que está a nuestro alrededor y también detrás de la pantalla, como cada uno de ustedes. Entonces, yo he puesto 3 imágenes. En la primera es uno de mis abuelos con el que pueden relacionarme, y la historia de él a mí me abraza y me hace conectar mucho más con las demás personas, con mis familiares, con mis amigos. Entonces, compartir eso, compartir historias, compartir sueños, compartir cada una de las cosas que tenemos en nuestra vida. También a través de las historias podemos conectar con personas que han vivido y nos han contado historias pasadas y que ahora podemos transmitirlas, como en el ejemplo está mi abuelo, y yo puedo transmitir a la segunda foto, que son a los niños, que son las futuras generaciones, que ellos también van a contar historias. ¿Y por qué no ser parte de esos sueños y vivir esos sueños? Pero también tenemos que pensar a qué público estamos hablando. Entonces, cuando contamos a una persona o cuando damos una charla a un público, tenemos que saber a qué público va dirigido, por ejemplo, si subimos un reel y nosotros somos jóvenes, puede ser que esté conectado también a la influencia en la que estamos viviendo. Y si contamos, por ejemplo, leyendas, va a ser para un público mayor, pero no va a ser también para un público menor. Entonces tenemos que saber qué mensaje estamos dando, cómo lo hacemos, y también por eso importa mucho el tono de la voz, el cómo nos expresamos a través de nuestro cuerpo, de nuestra voz, y los tonos y los momentos en los que vivimos. Entonces, ¿cómo puedo yo transmitir algo y que ese mensaje llegue a esa persona? Entonces yo he puesto diferentes fotos para que ustedes vayan también analizando y cómo podemos llegar a esas personas sin que sea muy abrumante o muy bajo el nivel del mensaje. Y mi parte favorita es también qué medios puedo usar. Entonces, cómo puedo cómo puedo transmitir ese mensaje. Y yo he puesto una foto mía, porque yo también hago cine, y también cómo podemos manejar estos medios. Tenemos las redes sociales como Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, o también las tradicionales, que son como radios, también pueden ser mensajes de texto. Entonces, todo esto podemos generar una red en la que todo lo que hagamos o lo que decimos sea transmitido. Y yo siempre digo, y he puesto la frase de que todo lo que pueda grabar y compartirse es de gran utilidad, porque el mensaje puede llegar a todo lado, pero siempre usando el medio correcto. Y como para un botón basta, les he puesto un caso muy peculiar en el que todo el movimiento y toda la comunicación nos ha servido de forma directa. En mi caso, les hablaré sobre el Yasuní, que fue un caso en el que Ecuador decidía el futuro, el sí dejar el producto fósil, el combustible fósil como el petróleo bajo la tierra, o la otra parte era sacar todo y que la naturaleza se vea afectada por estos cambios. Entonces aquí pueden ver la frase que está como Yasuní, a global environment victory. Entonces toda esta función fue hecha a través de personas, también fue hecha por indígenas, y también qué mensaje le transmitíamos a la gente. Entonces las imágenes que poníamos a través de animales, personas, el mensaje que llegaba a todos lados era a través de solo letras e imágenes. Entonces ese mensaje llegaba a diferentes partes del mundo, y no solamente fue en Ecuador, sino llegó a todo el mundo. Pero también tenemos que saber quiénes estaban detrás de esto y cómo esto funcionó para que todo el mundo que estaba apoyando o no esta solución o esta crisis que se iba a dar sabía sobre esto. Entonces llegamos a la parte en la que todos se pusieron de acuerdo. Aquí tenemos a Muyo TV, que es la productora de cine indígena en la que yo trabajo, y también varios colectivos. También está Jóvenes Amazónicos, Yasunidos, muchas conexiones que hicimos, y también les puse imágenes sobre las 3 partes del Ecuador: la costa, sierra y oriente, y también la región insular, que es Galápagos. Entonces, el mensaje que poníamos en redes sobre sí al Yasuní, poníamos un mono, poníamos un jaguarcito, y todas las personas dando su perspectiva, llegaba a diferentes partes. Entonces, eso fue el mensaje que captó a todos, y no solamente fue hecha por nosotros, sino salimos a las calles, pusimos hashtags sobre sí al Yasuní, sí a la vida, sí a la naturaleza. Entonces, el mensaje no solamente quedó en el Ecuador. Actores también como Jason Momoa, Mark Ruffalo, Nat Kelly, Leonardo DiCaprio apoyaron esta iniciativa, ya que el futuro es verde. Entonces, ¿por qué no apoyar a una salida en la que, como sabemos, actualmente vivimos una crisis climática? Entonces estamos buscando maneras para reducir el carbono, para reducir la basura, para reducir todo lo que nos afecta y tener una vida digna y con mejores soluciones a futuro. Entonces, detrás de todo lo que fue Yasuní hubo un gran equipo moviéndose, y lo que a mí más me encantó de toda esta campaña es que a través de la naturaleza, a través de videos, de todas las cosas que se movían a través de redes sociales, no solamente creamos conexiones, no solamente creamos amigos, sino creamos hermanos, creamos una familia en la que todos, por una vez o por 2 veces en la vida, dijimos sí, quisimos hacer parte de este cambio. Entonces fue un golpe interesante de cómo las redes sociales, como una historia, como una persona o como una parte de la tierra puede cambiar el rumbo de la historia, y podemos hacer algo por nuestra tierra. Y después de esto, el resultado final fue la noticia que más alegró a millones de ecuatorianos. De hecho, el 60% de ecuatorianos votó por el sí. Y como leen aquí, fue una noticia global. Todo el mundo estaba hablando, redes, periódicos, o sea, grandes compañías que no conocían mucho de este caso, fueron la voz también detrás de el Ecuador, detrás de la gente indígena que luchó por varios meses para que esto sea posible. Llegamos a todas las pantallas en todo lado, pero gracias a la comunicación y a la manera en la que contamos las historias, las anécdotas, los hechos que pasaban a través del día a día, los días que nos demorábamos en hacer campañas, en hacer videos, pero todo fue, no solamente guiones, sino totalmente fue hecho con todo el corazón, y por eso estas historias fueron con gran alegría y fue una máquina en ir, regresar, traer chicos, alegrar vidas y también llevar el mensaje que era cuidar la naturaleza. Y con esto yo quería cerrar y también quería invitarles a que podamos conversar, y si tienen alguna duda o después de todo esto tienen algunas cosas más que quieran saber sobre Ecuador, sobre cómo podemos contactarnos, también les dejaré mis redes sociales. Y también antes de terminar, yo quería decirles que creemos historias, que no solamente esperemos que alguien más nos cuente la suya, sino nuestra voz, nuestro corazón y nuestra pasión por querer algo no nos va a quitar nadie, y que nosotros podemos hacer mucho más que solo decir pequeñas cosas, sino salgamos al mundo y creemos en que el futuro está en nuestras manos y que podemos hacer mucho más por esta tierra, por nuestros animales, por nuestras futuras generaciones, y que el cambio es hoy, no es mañana, es hoy.
The answer is every person on this planet. We still have a chance to make greenhouse gas emissions come.
Amazing. So, Merna, how is going to be this? You will say the questions and I will translate them for Inewe. Inewe,
Okay.
Merna nos va a decir las preguntas y yo las voy a traducir para ti, ¿va?
De acuerdo.
Vale.
So the first question, the first question we have for now is, how do you think other countries can follow in Ecuador's footsteps?
So, ¿cómo piensas que otros países pueden seguir los pasos que Ecuador ha tenido alrededor del Yasuní?
Creo fundamentalmente que nos sigan también a través de cada una de las redes, de no solamente estas redes que son comunes como noticieros, que están avalados por el gobierno, sino hay muchas redes sociales más que pueden ser directas y con información real, no es información falsa, y que también apoyemos estas iniciativas donde partes de la gente indígena, de la gente que verdaderamente está luchando por todo esto, y cómo desde la parte indígena podemos hacer un cambio. Entonces, crear voces y lleguen, es por eso mismo que puse de que nuestras voces rompen barreras y pueden llegar a otros lugares del mundo, compartiendo y sintiéndonos primero, partiendo desde la empatía, de que qué es lo que harías tú si estuvieras en nuestro lugar, y cómo nosotros podemos ayudarnos y brindamos apoyo mutuo, así sea una compartida o un reposteo, todo nos puede servir, pero esa es la conexión que queremos hacer desde Ecuador y para todo el mundo, y también desde otras partes del mundo, ayudarles a ustedes con sus problemáticas.
Okay, so what Inewe says, Merna, is basically that we should explore other networks rather than those media, like the mainstream media that you have access to the news. Always explore new ways of getting what's going on, and share with your comrades. And as he shared during the session, our voices can cross borders and go ahead. So we should motivate and empower the collaboration, so in between the nations, as a summary. Let's go with the next question.
That's amazing. The second question is, how do you get involved in this big campaign you worked in, like the Yasuni?
¿Cómo te involucraste en la campaña tan grande como el Yasuni? ¿De dónde llega esta conexión?
Justo estaba terminando mis clases y en Ecuador se ve, bueno, esta campaña fue hace 10 años y el Estado no la aprobó. Entonces, 10 años después, todos empezamos a ver que ya había maquinaria. Entonces, yo también yo manejo lo de las redes sociales, entonces compartía en clases y después de lo que los chicos vieron lo que hacía en la ciudad, ellos también me dijeron, loco, vamos y hagamos contenido para Muyo TV y todo eso. Entonces, ellos me involucraron, empezaron a darme como pautas de qué más debería hacer y de hecho con ellos, como ellos tenían el equipo necesario para hacer grande esta campaña, entonces nosotros pusimos a hacernos dibujos, pancartas, reels cortos, TikToks, o sea, de todo funcionó. Entonces yo por mi parte era como solo comunicador, pero hubo otro grupo también que hacía diferentes cosas, entonces todos estábamos envueltos y todos teníamos un rol fundamental para llevar esto y por eso te digo que fue una campaña grande a nivel global que gracias a estas conexiones entre países fue lograda a escucharse en todos lados. Entonces creo que ese sentimiento fue...
Yeah. So Inewe just shared that he was actually finished his classes, Merna, and then this campaign like start evolving and everyone took their roles. Some people was doing some frames like cartels and like publicity to try to bring these voices out. But something that he highlights, Inewe highlights, is that the interconnection in between these people out of Ecuador made possible to get the outreach that they got in Ecuador, even though that this campaign was 10 years old. This last time is when it explodes and Ecuador finally votes yes for keeping the oil instead of exploiting it. So the campaign that Iniwe just shared is about stop using fossil fuels, like fossil fuels out, and now some other options that Ecuador is about to explore.
Like, we love that.
Yeah. Okay, we have a last question, I guess.
Yes, and it's the most important one. How can we amplify and support the voices of indigenous communities?
¿Cómo podemos ampliar ampliar las voces, pero también dar soporte a las voces de las comunidades originarias?
De hecho, eso también estamos haciendo porque estamos haciendo campañas para que los chicos, por ejemplo, no tienen este acceso a trabajos fijos aquí en la ciudad. Entonces, con nosotros a través de Muyo TV también estamos enseñando y creando clases de cine y también de producción audiovisual para que ellos tengan otra salida y ellos mismos puedan empezar a desarrollarse a sí mismos para hablar en público, para compartir todo y sin necesidad de que sea hecho por personas de afuera, sino ellos mismos aprendan y que ellos mismos puedan contar sus propias historias. ¿Y cómo apoyamos esto? También tenemos como el colectivo también nos ayuda con el equipo necesario para ir a las comunidades y que ellos aprendan por sí solos y se desarrollen en todos los ámbitos posibles.
Okay, so what Inewe was sharing basically is that he expects the indigenous youth to get trained to learn these skills. They are trying to collaborate between each other to share the knowledge, and everyone gets upgrading their own skills so everyone can take their role into these campaigns and communicate. And is what I can share right now, because honestly I was just checking out the videos and also the background, so I'm like but in general, Inewe, that eso es increíble. Inewe, Merna, do you have any other questions? I don't know.
There is one, but I would have to ask you to read it out, Augustine.
Okay, so, ¿cómo haces que gente joven se una a tu causa? Ah, no mames, tú puedes también leer, ¿eh? I just...
Como que más gente joven es, creo que yo transmito también como esa vibra de ser empático con la gente y entender también qué es lo que ellos quieren. Entonces, yo conecto, eso es lo que yo amo de mí, es como conectar rápidamente y que ellos también se sientan enganchados con esa noticia, compartir. Por eso siempre dije al inicio de que esto de compartir historias y conocer a gente es lo que me motiva, porque muchas veces parte de esas historias pueden conectar sueños, y es lo que pasó con mi universidad. Entre dos amigos se conocieron y crearon la universidad. Entonces, desde ahí es como conocer diferentes personas y desde ahí impulsarnos a todo. Y cuando te unes, estas conexiones logran muchas cosas, como fue el caso de Yasuni. Conociste personas y conocí a todos.
So, there's something really beautiful and important that when you, what he loves about himself, maybe this is where I should start, that his love of himself let him understand that he loves that he is empathic with people and that he can share and communicate. And when you are sharing a story leads into dreams, and dreams into actions, and actions into realistic things. So, for example, the university where he studies, this university started as a conversation within two friends, and now you have the university. Then the Yasuni campaign also start as sharing a story within a group of people, and then they start to communicate. As when we did Merna in COP27.
COP27.
And here we are having the Global Youth Coalition streaming in 4 languages, people from Ecuador, Cairo, Mexico, and me from the world. I'm in Hong Kong right now. So I guess that's
How
it.
cool is that?
Yeah.
That is it.
Hannah?
Yeah, muchas gracias. O sea, I just want to say thank you so much for your valuable information. Muchas gracias por toda la información que nos has dado. Es hermoso que podamos conectar contigo y que poco a poco justamente compartimos y nos unimos a la causa. Así que muchas gracias. Estamos en contacto. And yeah, basically we're...
Muchas gracias.
Actually, one last thing. Inewe, wait there, not te vayas. We have to announce that we will start giving away GoPros and microphones again. We have a plan finally, because we will have some people in Bonn that will take this in all over the planet. Entonces, Inewe, vamos nosotros a entregar algunas GoPros y micrófonos a jóvenes, a NGOs, y la gente puede participar. So, sorry for the interpretation that I'm mixing languages, but the main idea is that you guys go with Ecoverse, check, right, Hannah? You can find there the mini games and participate for these amazing prizes. That's the first thing. Second thing, you can get $2,500 if you post a video 3 to 5 minutes with your decarbonization maritime idea. Check drivet.org for more information. And thank you so much. Gracias, Inewe. Thank you, Merna, Hannah, Chris, Irene, Jane. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the eco-interpreters. This is Reforesting for Peace. And of course, we are the Global Youth Coalition. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Remember to rate the session.
So when I say we have 2 years